the person who does not forgive actually does more harm to themselves than the one who needs to be forgiven. And the same is true for us also. That is, when we refuse to forgive, we put ourselves into prison. That is, those who cling to anger and wrath, actually harm ourselves more than the object of our scorn. That is, it causes more harm to us. And is only the forgiving person that lives in true peace and true freedom and true joy. I recall this comic strip that I came across years ago that really stood out for me because I think it painted a really powerful message for us all. The comic strip was only 4 frames long. And in the first one, there was a woman who was sitting in a prison cell. She had a ball and chain around her ankle. She had a dark cloud over her head, and she was clearly very angry. In frame 2, the woman was still in that prison with a ball and chain around her ankle, but her face kind of softened. The dark cloud was gone, and all that was above her head was the word sigh. Sigh. So she's sighing. Then in the third frame, the woman is out of prison, the ball and chain is gone, she is dancing, she is smiling, and there's birds over her head that are singing also. And then in the final and fourth frame, that is in the final frame, you have the woman standing before her husband who's reading the newspaper on the couch, and she says, "Well, it wasn't easy, but I forgive you." And why I thought that was so interesting and so powerful is because if you really think about it, when the person who does not forgive actually does more harm to themselves than the one who needs to be forgiven. That is, more harm comes to the person that refuses to forgive. That is, the one who refuses to forgive actually puts a ball and chain around their own ankle and puts themselves into prison. And that is clearly what we saw in our gospel also. It is, we have this servant whose master forgave him a very large debt, right? And he goes right out, and then he refuses to forgive a fellow servant who actually owed him a much smaller amount. And so what happens to him? He gets thrown into prison, and he is tortured. But one must remember, it was through his actions, that is, it was his decision, his choice, that led him to be put into prison. And the same is true for us also. That is, when we refuse to forgive, we put ourselves into prison. That is, those who cling to anger and wrath, actually harm ourselves more than the object of our scorn. That is, it causes more harm to us. And is only the forgiving person that lives in true peace and true freedom and true joy. That is, we must not allow anyone or anything to rob us of our peace and joy. Why? Because life is simply too short, even to hold on to wrath and anger and vengeance and all that stuff, even for just a few hours. And so the answer for us is to be a forgiving person, but it's also not easy. Like, if we're honest with ourselves, we know it's not easy, right? It takes great courage and faith and virtue and strength. It might take everything to be a forgiving person. It's not easy. That is, but that is really what our goal is. In fact, that's what we're called to do. I lost my train of thought. I'm very distracted today. But I hate to miss of anything that I wrote down that I wanted to tell you. That is why, as we heard even in our first reading today, it says anger and wrath are hateful things. They're very hateful things. Why are they hateful things? Because they destroy our inner heart. They destroy our inner soul. They rob us of peace and joy in our own hearts. And so that is why that even though it's hard at times, that our initial reaction sometimes is to cling to that anger, or to want to cling to it, to hold on to resentment, hold on to a grudge. And that's okay, because that just happens. That just normally sometimes comes into our head and heart. But the key is, and the important key is, we must not allow it to unpack their bags and make a home in our head and in our hearts also. For when we allow anger and resentment and grudges to make a home in our hearts, it actually changes our personality. That is, it then becomes, we run the risk and the danger of it becoming part of who we are. And so that is why we must, as soon as possible, we must continually let go. That's the only way to live in true freedom and for true joy, If you really think about it, in the one prayer, there's a very powerful line in the one prayer that our Lord taught us, that is the Our Father. He says to forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. I mean, think about how powerful that is. You will be forgiven only in so much as you forgive others. So we should be desperately trying to be as forgiving a person as we possibly can. There's a story I came across in the paper not long ago, a very simple one about a captain of a boat, a captain of a tugboat was trying to pull away from the dock, but he forgot to untie one of the ropes. So instead of trying to see what the issue is, and instead of trying to figure out what was happening, he actually gunned the engine and tore the back of his boat off, And I thought about that's what anger and resentment and grudges do to us. If we go forward with that, we're only going to cause great damage to ourselves. And talking about forgiveness with others too, I've often encountered conversations like, but Father, you don't know what he or she did to me, the hurt they caused. Father, you have no idea. Okay, I probably don't. But I could go on with a list of hurts and grudges and resentment that's been done to me, done to you. That is, we all have had them. You can probably take any person here can tell me about a great hurt or great harm that was done to them. But regardless of the severity of it, there isn't anything that equals that. And if he can forgive that, then surely you and I can forgive others the hurts and the harm that have been done to us also. That is, we cannot call ourselves a true and authentic Christian if we hold on to resentment and anger and grudges. How can we call ourselves a true Christian if we harbor them? And so in the end of our gospel, our Lord tells us that, He comes right out and says, so too must each of you forgive your brother or sister from your heart. And what does that mean? Fully, deeply, right down to the heart. Forgive and forget the hurts done to us. And I think at any point in our lives, we're all human, we all come into conflict with others. That is, there's probably one person in each of your lives right now that we can forgive from the heart. And so it's important, not only for that person, but for ourselves also. If we want to live in true freedom and true joy, we must forgive from the heart. Our Lord calls us to get rid of that ball and chain, to come out of that prison and live in true freedom and true joy that is an imitation of Him. For in the end, I believe there is no one in heaven that had not yet first become an expert on forgiveness.